sentence of death by lethal injection provided.
White power! White power! I said again.
The court does not take hate crimes lightly, nor should they. There is no justification for a white supremacist targeting a Jewish community or a KKK member dedicating his life to killing black men. Fortunately, these racists face the full extent of the law. Take Patrick Wood Crusius, for example. It was a typical morning at the Cielo Vista Walmart in El Paso, Texas, a busy spot near the Mexican border. Families were shopping, kids were running around, and the usual weekend buzz filled the air. Then, out of nowhere, Crusius strolled in, armed and ready to unleash absolute terror. By 10:30 a.m., gunshots ripped through the store, turning it into a scene of panic and horror. Chaos erupted everywhere. Fast forward to the aftermath. Crusius, the man responsible for one of the deadliest hate-fueled attacks in U.S. history, found himself in court facing justice. The judge did not hold back. This 24-year-old who targeted and killed 23 people while injuring 22 others was sentenced to 90 consecutive life sentences. Yes, you heard that right. 90. No parole. No chance of freedom. His crime wasn't just mass murder. It was driven by pure calculated hatred. Before the attack, Crusius posted a vile manifesto online, ranting about immigrants and targeting people based on their ethnicity. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment act. He drove 650 miles from Allen, Texas to El Paso with the clear intention of committing mass murder. In court, the charges stacked up like a mountain. He faced 45 counts of violating the Matthew Shepard and James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act, along with another 45 counts for using a firearm in violent crimes. Each life sentence represented one of his victims, from Andre Anchondo and his wife Jordan, to Margie Record and many others, whose lives were senselessly taken. During sentencing, the victims' families stood up and spoke directly to Crusius. Tito Anchondo, who lost his brother and sister-in-law, talked about resilience and moving forward despite the devastation. Paul Jemrowski, Jordan's father, expressed how unbearable it was to be in the same room as the man who shattered his family. Dean Record, whose mother was murdered, traveled all the way from Nebraska to make sure his voice was heard. The investigation that brought Crusius to justice was massive, involving every major law enforcement agency you can think of: the FBI, ATF, Texas DPS, and more. The evidence was airtight, ensuring that justice was served.
I'm just following the lead that I've heard from the Paso Police Department, where they say there are strong indications that this shooter wrote that manifesto, and this was inspired by his hatred of people here in this community.
He openly admitted to targeting people based on their ethnicity. There was no denying it, no escaping it. In the end, Crusius sat in that courtroom and heard his fate: 90 life sentences with no possibility of parole. Just imagine the weight of that. No cameras were allowed inside, but you can bet his expression said it all. And if you thought this case was jaw-dropping, wait until you hear about the next one. This one involves a man who took his anti-Semitism to horrifying levels. One God.
One God, one race, one nation, so help us God Almighty. White power! White power!
Frazier Glenn Miller Jr., a white supremacist in Kansas, decided to unleash his hateful ideology in the most horrifying way imaginable. Also known as Frazier Glenn Cross, he took it upon himself to target 2 Jewish centers in Overland Park, Kansas, in a deadly rampage that shocked the nation. Picture this. April 13, 2014, Miller, armed and dangerous, rolls up to the Jewish Community Center and a nearby retirement home with one mission: to kill as many people as possible simply because of their religion. His first victims were 69-year-old Dr. William Corporon and his 14-year-old grandson, Reet Griffin Underwood. They were just outside the Jewish Community Center, likely thinking it was just another regular day. Moments later, Miller gunned down 53-year-old Terry Lamano outside the retirement home while she was visiting her mother. 3 lives were taken in an instant, all because of one man's vile beliefs. But Miller didn't stop there. In court, he made sure his trial was just as chaotic as his crimes. Representing himself, he used the courtroom as a platform for his racist rants, showing remorse for the innocent lives he had taken.
20,000 illegal aliens across our borders illegally, breaking our laws.
The trial was pure madness. Miller openly admitted to the murders, shouting about his hatred for Jews and making no attempt to hide his motives. At one point, he even yelled "white power" in the middle of the proceedings, showing just how deeply rooted his racism was.
One God, one race, one nation, so help us God Almighty, white power. White power!
You can imagine the judge had his hands full trying to keep this guy in check.
You're going to proceed in this manner, and you will be removed from the court. What matter? Be specific. Have to cover.
Let me back up a bit. Miller wasn't just some random guy with hateful views. He had a long and dark history in the world of white supremacy. Born on November 23, 1940, he served 20 years in the U.S. Army, rising to the rank of Master Sergeant in the Special Forces and even completing tours in Vietnam. But somewhere along the way, he became consumed by extremist ideology, diving headfirst into neo-Nazi groups and racist literature. In 1980, he founded the Carolina Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, which later morphed into the White Patriot Party. This wasn't just your run-of-the-mill hate group. It was pro-apartheid and openly called for an all-white nation in the South. His leadership came to an end in 1987 when he was arrested for violating multiple court orders. But back to the courtroom drama. During his trial, Miller launched into unhinged tirades, accusing the court of denying him a fair trial while spewing his twisted beliefs. His behavior only reinforced the true depth of his hatred and delusion.
I want to speak my mind. I spent 20 years in our 2 tours in Vietnam. Let me tell you, I earned the right to speak.
He also claimed that he wanted to kill Jews before he died, convinced they had too much power. His words were as chilling as they were deranged. Despite his outbursts, the jury wasn't swayed. On August 31, 2015, Miller was found guilty on all counts, including capital murder, attempted murder, and hate crimes. Just 8 days later, the jury recommended the death penalty. Judge Thomas Kelly Ryan didn't hold back when delivering the sentence, stating, "Your attempt to bring hate to this community has failed." It was a powerful moment, one that echoed the resilience of the victims' families. But Miller remained as remorseless as ever. He dismissed the death sentence, saying he expected it and didn't care. His lack of regret only reinforced the pure hatred that fueled his actions.
Just get the hell out of here. Go back to the jail. Wait for phase 2 if you're not going to get that fair trial. When he man for stuff, what the hell now with you?
But his bravado couldn't erase the impact of his crimes or the relief felt by those seeking justice.